Yeah. We are live. Just wait for a few people to come in. So far, no one.
Help.
No one. That's interesting.
Help. Oh my God, I'm fading away. I've got
Damien has Omnicom.
Omnicon.
Now, all jokes aside.
There it is there. Omnicron. Or whatever it is. Omicron. What is it? I don't know how to say it.
This is a very, could be a very serious variant. So all jokes aside.
Sorry.
We did actually go out. We've approached everyone to try find an update. And finally, the Hairless Cat Association of Ohio got back. And they sent us this date on how hairless cats are dealing with the approach of Omnicron. Obviously, it's not liking the idea of Omnicron. See?
It's not funny.
Oh, yeah. That's Omnicron.
Yep.
If you're a hairless cat, this is one of the...
He's laughing. Is there someone in the video?
Omnicron right out of the thing.
Yeah, and it's not funny because that used to be a Labrador.
See, it was funny the second time round. Now,
you just
bring in our guests. Dr. Oosterhuis.
Oosterhuis.
That was one scary Omicron.
Yeah.
Or as we say,
Father Kumar.
Take it seriously, Paul. Please.
Who single-handedly destroyed our entire YouTube account just by speaking from the soul. Don't you know YouTube doesn't like soul speak? It likes funny cats. Funny cats. And from Czechoslovakia, now living in Perth, which is setting itself up to be the new dictatorship after Dan takes over here, Father Pavol Herda. Did I say that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, it should be a thing. So we're going to start. We're just going to start with Paul because I said to Paul, Father Rizzo, unfortunately, had to go away to work at some mental health community something. And so he had to go. So we brought Paul in with a few hours' notice. And I told Paul, you've got 2 hours to discover everything you can, including the cure for Omnicron. So, Paul?
The vax is the cure, mate. The vax.
That cures.
I already know.
You know that, headache, heartbreak, everything, everything except totalitarianism. Look, lineage B.1.1.529. Originally, they called it Nunu. Oh, sorry, it was expected to be called the Nu variant, following the Greek alphabet, and that wouldn't have been scary at all because you would have called it. It reminds you of the Teletubby. The Teletubby character that looks like a family dog, but it's actually a vacuum cleaner. Naughty Nunu. No, it wouldn't have gone. And so then they looked at the next letter in the Greek alphabet, and it was G, XI. I don't know why they didn't go with that. That would have been a perfectly good. But apparently, no. So the next one was Omicron. So
mate, if you need it, I've got a cheat sheet up the back.
But I get a bit of dyslexia when I see it. I rearrange the letters and I see moronic. The moronic.
Nicely worked. Nicely worked. I wondered who was going to get it in and how they were going to get it in.
I think he's only had 2 hours, and that's what he's come up with. This is gold.
He's padding. This is all padding.
Started in. It's been found in a few places around the world, particularly South Africa, Botswana, and but we're talking about very small numbers. Like in Botswana, they're talking about 77 cases. What we know so far is that it's fascinating. It's quite different from the Delta variant, which is sort of where we were, Delta plus along this stream. And now all of a sudden, it's like we've got now a new variant, which is rewound in time back to April, say, 2020. and it had all the things of that track of the viral evolution, and then suddenly it fell asleep. It fell asleep, and now has re-emerged with all these changes. Actually, quite a long list of changes. Some of them which affect so-called mutations affect its infectivity. So it's likely that, and it appears that it may be better at transmitting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be more dangerous or more, cause more disease. And I was on the phone today with friends in South Africa, and in South Africa they have access to hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, artemisia, all sorts of natural therapies, and they've all they've already had Delta run through South Africa, and they're not worried. They're really not worried. The meeting with the doctors recently, they're not making any changes. So it's the West that's freaking out.
Look at us. We're really freaking out. We are really off our nuts about this one.
Look at Father.
Others were fine, but when this one turned up, I thought, oh my God, we're going this time.
I can say that it's detected by one particular PCR assay. So, they'll need a new test. That's good. That'll generate income. And we don't know yet what the impacts of the variant are going to be.
Paul, can I ask you something? In your great some of your medical wisdom, like they're saying this has just come out now. So I'd never heard about this until 2 days ago. It's already made its way to Australia, of course. It's already made its way into Victoria too, although it went back to New South Wales. But all in 48 hours.
Shows it's a clever virus.
I know. It just came down here long enough to stop the protest this weekend, I'm sure. Good on it. Yeah. But what I really want to know is they're saying, okay, it's okay, guys, don't panic. We'll bring the boosters forward. Now, hang on. How do the boosters know that they're good for Omnicom or whatever it is? How does that make any sense? They didn't even know about it, but they had the boosters in storage, and now the boosters are going to come forward and stop us from a variant that no one knew about until 2 days ago.
Explain that
to me, Paul.
That makes sense, Damien.
Yeah, that's why we got you on the show, Paul. Explain it.
They probably had the vaccine ready. You remember, it's been sitting there in the lab since
But how come it was ready for this particular variant? How did it know what sort of variant? That's what I don't understand.
Well, you make the virus, you make the weapon, the bioweapon, and the cure at the same time. So that's normal procedure, I'm sure.
Okay, right.
Fathers. That's our update for today on this. Now, in case you don't know, Dr. Oosterhuis was an anaesthetist for 30 years. Then he had the audacity to live up to his Hippocratic oath. Now he's on the dole. And I mean, we make light of it, but we have another doctor that comes on. He was forced to resign. And now we know down here in Victoria that priests are being gagged as well. And that's why it's rare to find priests who are brave enough to speak. So
you have to search the country.
Can I ask, starting with Dr. Herda, and my father Herda, why are you brave enough to speak out in a time where most people are running for cover?
I think that it's up to everyone conscience, and my conscience is telling me that I have to speak up, because we're fighting against something which is evil, in my opinion, and it's plenty of lies, lack of freedom, and absolutely we are looking for the truth.
Hates Christianity too, fathers. It really hates Christianity.
Why? Why do you think they hate the Christianity from your?
Because it stops control, doesn't it? If I've got faith in a higher power that's greater than the authority of the government, greater than Daniel Andrews, then that causes him no end of concern, I'm sure.
Lockdowns stop churches, stop people getting together. I mean, if you can't go to synagogues and churches and mosques,
and I think it's
No,
sorry.
go on, no, Father.
Keep going, Pavel.
That's what we initially went looking for priests. That's how we found Father Rizzo, by wondering why the churches were closed. There was a big church in Melbourne. We started with the bishops first, but they never really got back. And then we went looking for priests, and that's how we came across Father Rizzo.
I think that I will answer to the question why the church, in my opinion, because what we have now is a lot of fear. And what the church is good at is actually give the faith and alleviate the fear. And they give the encouragement. And also give the space for the freedom. Because we believe the freedom is also the means for the human excellence, to human happiness, to fulfillment to all of our human destiny. And when we don't have a freedom, it will stifle us. And I believe there is a very famous theologian, Thomas Aquinas.
Father, sorry to interrupt you. Can I get you to sit a little bit closer to your laptop?
Yes.
I think you're struggling to pick up your voice.
Okay, there is the famous
That's better.
theologian Thomas Aquinas, who distinguished between the fear as an emotion and also the fear as a way of living. And then fear as a way of living always stifles us and locks us into the prison of kind of self-protection. And jealously protect our own safety and safety of those close to us. And therefore you have a problem struggle to get the people out of the shelf because of the self-protection. And sometimes when you are in this kind of environment, you will also find out that we abandon the outside of our close circles, who are vulnerable and who are different from us, and they become not our concern. And both of these way of living, regardless disregard of others or stifling self-protection, are not necessarily the problem of the fear. They are problems of love. Because feeling well in the time of the COVID requires that we love well. And we are failing in this way. We failing to love the others. And I actually see that on the protest, that you can see when the people bond together, they love well, they get the courage as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To love well, in the case of the dear Akana said, is to be courageous.
Because you're having lots of big marches in Perth, isn't it? I'm from Perth. Perth isn't known for protesting, especially against the government. But you're having lots of protests there, I hear.
There were 60,000 people probably the last protest. The big protest was on the 27th.
Perth, that's immense. For Perth, that's really
wow,
huge.
that's a huge number. That's a huge number.
It's a city of about 2 million, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a huge spread out city, you know what I mean? And honestly, I'm from Perth, and most people just used to talk about the weather, footy, and mortgages. That was it. And no offense to Perth, but you're boring. And so 60,000 people is a lot of people. But Father, can I ask Father Kumar, what's it like in Sydney now? Because they just basically announced that everything's going to end on December the 15th and everything's going back to normal. society. So yeah, I just, because at the moment I feel they're trying to change morality. They're trying to, what was right is now wrong. They're selling apartheid like apartheid is basically the correct moral path. So do you see morality as
And Jesus asked the question to the disciples, do you want to go away too? And people thought it's a hard teaching. At Jesus' time itself, they said it's a hard teaching. How can anyone can accept this? Whereas they started to leave, and then he asked the question, do you want to go away too? And then that is the time Peter says, Saint Peter, he said, where shall we go to? You have the words of eternal life. Now, when that is the reference point for us, when that becomes a focus for us, and see,